Yes. So they're looking, number one, who's the expert? Number two, what is their angle? And number three, they are looking to see if what their subject matter expert has to speak on is most relevant to the nature and the tenor of what's being put out there by their peers. So, for example, we call this in public relations, what is the current event? So I want you to look at, not only are you the expert, not only do you have a unique perspective, but is your topic of interest relevant to a current event? Because if it doesn't have all of those factors in it, I'll tell you, Drosella, the chances of you being able to successfully pitch yourself will be very low. Our NFL players sometimes wouldn't get covered because although they were doing really great things for the community, that's just not what the journalist was interested in at that moment, right? So this is a long-term game. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint, but you want to use the right strategies in order to be able to apply this effectively. All right. So I'm gonna ask three of you, whoever can get on the mic fast or raise your hand fast, as I don't know. But I'm gonna ask three of you to share what your expertise is. Period. What is your expertise? So raise your hand if you want to volunteer. Okay, I see Lee, Drosella, and Sandra Boyd. All right, so Lee, you're up. What is your expertise?
Algorithm interruption in education.
Algorithm interruption in education. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, so if you could give me a layman's term of what that means, tell me what is that in my language?
Everyone is gifted, and education is merely breaching the gap in gifted, building rainbow bridges so that people can reach their potentials
Hmm.
and discover others.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that children are one of your target audiences?
No, they were my target audience for over 40 years as a public educator. No, the adults are my target.
Adults are your target.
Yeah,
Is it gender specific?
no,
Okay, so men or women.
yes.
Okay, so let me try to retranslate what you're saying. So, Lee, if I'm a journalist, I have a story that I want to put out that's about celebrating Women's History Month. As the expert in this particular genre, how do you see yourself being an asset to me? What light can you shed on my story that's about celebrating women's history?
Wow. Well, I'd start with how have you celebrated your mother lately?
How have you?
Celebrated your mother lately.
Okay, tell me more.
Uh, what are what are three things you've learned from your mother that you feel have helped you learn how to navigate and thrive in the world?
Okay, good. So Lee is now going through an exercise where, as a journalist, I just told her I'm interested in covering a story about Women's International Women's Day. Now she's trying to now see how her expertise is helping bridge the gap between communities and helping people love each other more, how that can fit into what I'm looking for as a journalist. The same is true of you. When you have the opportunity to now show you two ways actually how you can see what journalists are looking for. When you understand the angle of the journalist, then you have to say, okay, well, if my area is, you know, civil rights, how can I fit civil rights, that conversation into the journalist's interest, which is Women's History Day? Well, you figure out, okay, I can write an article or pitch my book, a chapter from my book that specifically talks about women leaders in civil rights, for example. right? So Lee, that was excellent. What you did is trying to identify, okay, I know that my audience is men and women, but my journalist just told me she's interested in only speaking about women. So you then went on to say, hey, I want to specifically talk about how your relationship with your mother is probably a good indicator of X, Y, and Z, right? This is my
Thank
contribution
you.
to the space in Women's History Month. So great. Thank you. Does
Brilliant. Thank you. That was amazing.
excellent, excellent. So who's up next? We have Sandra, and then we have Angela. Oh no, we have Drosella, then Sandra, correct? What's your area of expertise, Drosella?
Refugee integration.
Tell me more.
Refugee integration. So refugees are people who escape their countries because of persecution based on race, religion, political opinion, or they are escaping wars and violence. So they arrive in a new country without anything, no family members, little clothes on them. So they need the support from different partners in the community, being faith-based, private sector, local government institution, so the integration can be smooth and they become productive and contributing members of the community.
Excellent. So, Drosella, your expertise is so rich. And so, what I want you to do, and this is what's for one person is always for everyone. So, your job is to break your area of expertise down into 5 categories, right? What I heard from you was children being separated from their families, repatriation, um, asylum seekers. So I heard like 4 or 5 major themes. And out of those 4 or 5 major themes are also subtopics. And once again, this is why having a book is your foundation, because this is a similar format that you'll take when developing the content for your book. But let's talk about it. So let's say that you focus just on asylum seekers and integrating into a third culture when, let's say, they come to the United States, for example. So if you have that one topic, there are like 10 other subtopics that you can talk about. In order to get the journalist's attention, you want to already have a database, i.e., a catalog of stories, like we teach you, of how you can integrate yourself into conversations specifically on that one topic alone, which is asylum seekers. So maybe you'll talk about, mothers having to, separate from their husbands because they are more of a priority for refugee camps than men are, right? So if a holiday such as Women's International Day comes up, then you'll be able to pitch journalists the angle of your story because it's relevant. Number 2 on your topic list. In that same category, asylum seekers, you could talk about the inadequate facilities that exist in the US or wherever these asylum seekers are. So you have to find different ways and brainstorm on different ways you can talk about the same idea. Is that helpful?
Yes, and also because I was a refugee myself and my husband came as an asylum seeker, so I mostly start by telling my story and then I move forward.
Yes, right. So that's how you should do it in your book. However, when you're pitching to media, they want it short, simple, sweet. They want it similar to a snap, right? So they're more interested in knowing how you can contribute versus what your background is, if that makes sense. So they're more interested in knowing, okay, not just your degrees, but that you have a particular angle that they're interested in. And only then they'll be able to say, hey, I want to know more about you. It's similar to when Lisa, I don't know if you ever heard her story where she was being interviewed by Oprah and they just wanted her as an expert from The Secret. It's only then when she came up as the expert of The Secret that they were interested in doing a full out expose on her background alone, right? So speak to the interests of the journalist first. And then once you're good enough, well, we are all good enough, but once they find interest in you, then you'll be able to leverage additional media attention. And in fact, they'll actually want to come to you more because they've gotten a greater appreciation for one, your expertise, and number two, you as an individual. Is that helpful?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you.
Good stuff. Sandra, you're up next.
Okay.
What is your expertise?
I raised my hand just so I could get used to speaking.
Yes,
Like,
yes. Leave alone.
My expertise is I'm a caregiver. Professionally, I'm a registered nurse, but I'm a caregiver to several loved ones with a mental illness.
Hello?
Yeah. And I became a caregiver at the age of 10 when my mom had a traumatic brain injury. So I've been a caregiver all my life, starting with my mom and now with several other family members. And so I help caregivers who are new and scared and don't know what to do and know where to turn, just try to help them on their caregiving journey.
That is beautiful. So, wow. What I love about your topic is that it is not gender specific, but you could actually go into speaking on different aspects of that caregiving journey as it applies to different genders, different age groups, right? So one of the angles, if it's International Caregivers Month, which there's probably a holiday like that, you could research it to see. But you can use the angle of what does it mean to be a child giving care and assistance to an elder, right? That is absolutely blog worthy. So this is good because sometimes it's not even always about you pitching yourself to the journalist. Other times it's about you introducing the conversation and then journalists find you. Here's the thing. If you are on YouTube, if you have a blog yourself, if you have a book, if you are on social media, on Twitter, and you engage in the conversation that people already care about, right? Because people know that it's this particular holiday or this particular month. Well, if you indoctrinate people about your angle, then once again, journalists are always looking for unique ideas to help elevate their profile as reporters. And so if you're tweeting about this topic, if you are writing blogs about this topic, if you are introducing and being a conversation starter, you can also get picked up by journalists in that way. The point is to go where they are, either be a conversation starter like you could be and use this angle as, have you ever heard of a 10-year-old caring for an elder before they died? That was my story, right? And that is interesting enough for other people to spot you and see you and even retweet you when you gain influence like that. So I'm excited because once again, as being a marathoner, you're gonna wanna implement a myriad of these strategies so that you won't burn out, right? If you don't get picked up immediately. And number two, that you understand that there are many ways to pivot. I always tell clients that one book that you write can be your talking points for the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years, and you don't have to write another one. I'm that person. Like, I only wanted to write one book. I ended up authoring 2 personally, and that was it because I know that I'm passionate about speaking to college students. So I wrote one book that allowed me to leverage it and make $3,000 for one speaking engagement. And I know that anytime I want to go back to that particular area of expertise, the knowledge is already there because I wrote it in a book, right? It never changes, it's evergreen. And so I want you to know, but it's important for now when the times are changing, how do you reintroduce your same expertise, but make it relevant to the times? The same information that I wrote back in 2015 about college success strategies are very different now because we're in a COVID-19 environment where virtual learning is now the thing. That wasn't a thing back then. So you have the expertise, but as you grow and develop, you want to be able to angle it in a way that is relevant to what people are saying. So let's talk about some very real examples. Thank you so much for those of you who volunteered to be an example. So, anyone know 2 holidays that are coming up next month in February? All right, Celestina, mute yourself, and let me see. Who else raised their hand? Oh, Lee and Celestine, what's one? You both name one, please.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, okay. Thank
And-
you.
Oh,
Lee, go ahead.
African American History Month.
yes.
Black History Month.
Mhm.
And so,
Or African History Month, Black
I
History
want
Month.
yeah.
But crack up,
Multiple
whatever.
tokens.
Same thing. Good stuff. Yes. So later this week, I'll give you all access to a blog that
Oh,
will.
I have one more.
What else is happening?
Actually, well, it's Aquarius, and supposedly December 22nd,
That's
we're
my
in a new
birthday.
26,000 year conjunction, and it's Celestine's birthday. There you go.
No, that's enough to celebrate, right? So every month there are a number of holidays. Some of them are very well known, others not so much. Oh yeah, Celestine, I got your text message, by the way. So after the call, just stay on and we'll talk, okay? I want you to know I didn't forget about you. Okay, good. Yes, so every month there are a ton of holidays. And you as an author should certainly be aware of the ones that are relevant to you. So did you know that in January, all of these holidays took place? For those of you who may be like me and want it bigger, I'll make it bigger. So in January, there was Cervical Cancer Screening Month. There was March of Dimes, Birth Defects Prevention Month. It was named, January is considered National Personal Self-Defense Awareness Month, National Physiotherapy Month, etc. So again, there are many bloggers who are well known, many journalists who will be writing stories on these particular holidays. They don't just come up with story ideas just because. No, if you look at Google News, if you look at past newspapers, magazines, you'll see that every year they're talking about the same thing, but guess what? It's in a different way. So let's position ourselves to maximize on every month by angling our particular message so that it can reach the conversation that's happening in that period of time. So Lee was right. Next month is Black History Month. How can you, Valerie, position yourself, even though you haven't authored your book yet, but you have expertise anyway? How can you position yourself to be quoted as an expert in the topic of African American history? And I think I know the answer. So tell us.
Maybe you should share. I would say that it's an opportunity as we start to look at those unsung heroes and sheroes that have actually paved the way for people like me to be successful in a corporate environment from a leadership and executive development standpoint. And therefore, I am looking to, should you choose to engage, is helping other Black women and men to excel in their personal development as they recognize their inner strengths going forward. And they too can be legacies as we continue to celebrate African American History Month.
Look at that, that's a pitch, okay? That's a pitch. And what's gonna make your pitch even more rich, is talking, giving just a little taste, not your whole story, but just a little taste about your background. Why are you qualified, Valerie, to speak on this topic? It's because for those of you who may not know, Valerie, you tell us.
Well, I have experienced 38 years in the corporate environment under the tutelage of people like an Ursula Burns, a Barry Rand, and others. And I have mentored several other people that have been successful. And I just received my honorary doctorate degree from Mercy College and was also given the opportunity to be the commencement speaker for the School of Business for the class of 2020. And my theme was called Rise Up. There's a new fleet of ships that's rising up.
I love it. I love it. So Valerie is a great example of actually being Black history. Okay. So your life, your experiences are chock full of relevant conversation starters within these particular holidays. Even you, Lee, oh my God, you've had in your lifetime conversations, interactions, trainings, probably love interests, you name it, when it comes to this topic. And so I don't want you to think of it as, oh, I didn't study, about heart disease. I didn't study any of this, but you've been affected and impacted by these holidays in some way, right? Most of them anyway. So Lee, think about, okay, if you wanted to be a conversation starter and potentially get journalists to look at you as an expert, subject matter expert, think about your topic, which is connecting communities, and think about an angle as it relates to Black people, right? Your blog, your Facebook video, your YouTube video can be something along the lines of why African Americans and white people should love each other more in 2021, or 10 ways communities can love each other more in 2021, and be very specific about it, right? Because all of these angles, I'll tell you, there's no excuse, there's no reason. If you guys use these strategies, there's absolutely no reason why a blogger, a podcaster, a journalist would not want to cover you. So the question is, where do you go to find them? So everybody, you guys are getting some good information from this training so far. Let me know. I'm just going to tap into the room real quick. Yes, Valerie, I see you. I can call all of your names, so thank you so much for your feedback. Angela, yes. Teresa, love to see you. Glad you could make it. Deborah is joining us. Awesome. So now that we know the holidays in each month, and like I said, we'll share this with you on a blog later this week. Now we have to figure out, okay, what are ways where I can let the world know that I'm an expert and I can talk on these areas? Well, ask yourself, Teresa, what are some of your favorite magazines, newspapers that you like to read? Because you can even start locally. My client, Tabitha, she was quoted in the Washington Post, the Washington Times, it's the Washington Post. She was quoted in the Washington Post, not just because she's African American, had a Black daughter who, is looking up to Kamala, and they wanted to have that as an angle, but she was local, right? So the picture that they actually used, Sandra, was a picture of her doing a photo shoot with her daughter, but they put it underneath the caption, the day of the inauguration. So it was an outside picture with her and her daughter, and she thought it was really, Tabitha thought it was really funny because it made it seem as if they were actually at the inauguration. And they were like looking up to Kamala. So journalists will use anything to make the story relevant. You just have to raise your hand and say, hey, I have a piece of the story, and I think you should, speak to me about my expertise. So that was pretty fun. And I invite you all to check out the article as well. So let me stop sharing my screen real quick and let's answer the question. So one of the blogs that I like to go to, because I don't order magazines. Who still orders magazines? No, nobody. Oh, Valerie still order magazines? And so what do you do with them once they're not interesting anymore? Once you've read everything, I should say.
I put them in the recycle.
There you go. See, good old recycler. I just go online. And one of the ones that I like to look at is Forbes. Forbes magazine is great online. And what I do is I actually look at my area. I'm interested in a lot, but let's look at small business. And let's just read. Let's see what people are talking about. So this first article that comes up is a beautiful picture. Exclusive. Black female founded Partake Foods raises $4.8 million in funding from investors, including Rihanna. I click on it, I'm interested. So I read it. After I finished the article, I'm starting to put my mind in the mindset of a journalist and as a publicist. So I'm like, wow, I have a lot in common with her. I'm a founder, may not have raised $4.8 million in funding, but I think I have a relevant story that could be featured in Forbes. For example, Valerie, you were amongst the first tranche of African American women who were able to rise to such a high level in corporate America. So, as you're thinking about a journalist and how you could be featured in the oh so fabulous Forbes magazine, you already have your topics down. Now you want to reach out to the journalist. So, this little picture right here of Miss Brianna Garrett, she wrote this article. So now I'm interested because now I know that Brianna may in fact be interested in my particular expertise. So I'm looking first to see all of what Brianna has wrote about before. Is she just doing this one article, or is this something that Brianna loves to talk about? If so, she may be my target. So let's see, these, when I click on her name, it brings up the list of articles that she has written in the past. So the one that we just read was published earlier in the year. Here she's writing about the best reads from Forbes, the culture, which is a subsection of Forbes, which is for like African American Latinx communities. Here she wrote 5 trends for Black and Brown communities in 2021. Now this is getting exciting. Forbes, the culture, announces the launch of new advisory board. Meet Cute just raised $6 million to shake up the podcast industry with diverse rom-coms. So as I'm looking at this journalist, I'm doing my research, and I realize that she's someone who's interested in having a conversation about things that impact the Black community, specifically business things that impact the Black community. So if I have written a book, if I am like Valerie, who's in the process of putting my story out there, then what I can do is I can actually contact Brianna and pitch myself for a story that she may be interested in. And you can do this 2 ways. One, you can do it by what I was advising Lee on, which is to be a conversation starter. Lee wrote a blog about how Black people and white people can love each other in 2021. Lee would reach out to Brianna using either of these mechanisms on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I don't know what this is. I think this goes to her blog. Yeah, her RSS feed. So Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, either one of these 3 channels you can reach out to Brianna on. And don't just stop at one. Do all of them until she responds, and do it multiple times. And so Lee, as a conversation starter, you would simply reach out to her stating something like this. Hi, Brianna. I loved your latest article about Black women in tech. I see that you write about these topics pretty often. If you ever need someone to speak about the topic of cross-cultural unity, I've written a book about it. Here's my information. That was like 5 lines. And then you leave it at that. The next time you reach out to her, you're going to say, hi, Brianna. I loved your latest article about whatever that latest article is. Make sure it's a new article. And you say, hey, I think you would probably be interested in reading my blog on X, Y, and Z. This is the angle of the conversation starter. The reason why I call it the conversation starter is because you are giving her an introduction of work that you've already written. So you are looking forward to building a relationship with her based on a hypothesis, an educated hypothesis, that she may be interested in reading your work so that she could probably talk about that particular subject matter in her next article. That's the way of the conversation starter. Now, the way of a pitcher, I should say, not a picture, but a person who's pitching, goes like this. So let me take somebody who I heard from, which is Sandra. Sandra spoke about caregiving. So sometimes in the Black community, there's not always estate planning and planning for the eventualities of passing away. And so many families, am I right, Sandra? Many families sometimes find themselves in having to do spontaneous direction when it comes to who's going to take care of mom when she gets sick, because mom is sick right now and we didn't plan for it, right? That's what happened to me. So you would introduce yourself, not telling her to read your blog, but as a person who's pitching themselves to a journalist, you would say, Brianna, I once again compliment her on the work that you read, because everyone wants to feel appreciated. And she wants you to know that you've done your research and you know that she's specifically interested in this particular topic. So you say, hi, Brianna, state your name. I loved your article on X, Y, and Z. If you ever need an expert on the topic of African-American caregiving, please reach out to me, X, Y, and Z. The reason why the conversation starter is different from the pitcher is because the conversation starter is looking to engage Brianna in reading their material. It's kind of like back in the day when, new artists would try to get a record contract. They would say, hey, here's my free demo, here's my CD, right? And then they would have that angle and approach. Whereas other artists would have had more of an introductory conversation and building on that relationship before they ever introduce the person into their work. The reason why these two strategies are equally effective, but they're different, is because journalists want to see that, number one, that you're interested in them. Number two, that you're able to share something that's going to be short. But also, if you're the conversation starter, they want to see that you have the knowledge already and the ability to introduce something new that they may be interested in. The pitcher, the person who's pitching their expertise to the journalist, is already showing them very short, sweet, and succinctly that you are interested in this topic, and I am the expert because I've done this. So it's more of a short conversation as opposed to relationship building conversation. You guys got me so far? Good. And with practice, you'll get it. I've been doing this for a while, so I use both. So if at any time you're trying to be the conversation starter, you have Facebook videos that you think the journalist would be interested in, you have blogs, etc., follow that for a little while until you see results, and then use the more of the sniper approach when it comes to pitching that the other person who's more experienced would use. Start first being the conversation starter, I would say, and then move on to being the pitcher. So glad.
Question.
Yes, who has a question? Sandra.
Yeah. So if you, so I know that November is Caregivers Month. So how soon would I reach out to someone?
Mm-hmm. Start building up your digital assets first. So be the conversation starter. That's where I want all of you to start, on the conversation starter part. Build up your digital assets. So do you have a blog that you're having this conversation about in 5 different ways?
Yes, I have an Instagram and a podcast.
Excellent. So she has an Instagram and a podcast. Be consistent with that. I would say a month or 2 leading up to it in terms of the angle. So your niche is already very specific, but let's say you had a business that was about educating entrepreneurs on how they can do marketing, right? That's very general, but there are multiple ways that you can educate entrepreneurs on that topic. So if you're looking to get covered for, what's another holiday? Let me just go to it. If you're looking to get covered for a story in the month of February on financial aid awareness, But remember, your business is very general. You're helping entrepreneurs with their marketing. The month or two leading up to that month, build up your digital assets where you're only focused on 5 different ways to talk about this topic of financial aid awareness. How does financial aid awareness impact low income communities? How does financial aid loans impact millennial generations, right? So you're looking at 5 different ways or more to talk about this for about 2 months leading up to that month, because when you then go to reach out to journalists and you share your podcast, you share your blog article or your Facebook, etc., they wouldn't just see that you're a one-hit wonder and you just now started talking about this. They'll see that there's history, there's expertise in this particular area, and be more interested in having you come on.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. All right, so I want you to know that finally finding a journalist's information is not unique to Forbes. You can use this strategy. It's like a sniper strategy. There are some databases that you could pay for to get like email addresses, etc. I don't recommend it, because if you just have the focus to, you know, narrow down what are your top 10 newspaper publications, there are like well over 100 journalists that, you know, write for these particular newspapers. So you don't have to pay for these databases. You just do a little research. So I'm going to go to NYTimes. I'm just pulling it up right now and show you how this strategy applies across board. Sometimes you get really lucky and journalists already have their email addresses available. So like with Brianna and Forbes, you would have to do a little bit more digging to find her email address. But here, this journalist has their contact information. Oh no, that's actually not true. This is how you share. So let's dig deeper and see. This article was written by Katie Benner and Charles Savage. Her name is hyperlinked. When you click on her name, you're gonna find all of her latest articles that she's written. Well, by now I already know that Katie would likely be interested in my area of expertise. I will read her bio and I will do more research to figure out how I can get her email address. So usually NYTimes, they each have a designation at the end. So it's usually their first name dot last name at nytimes.com. How did I discover that? I just did more digging, right? So I would put, just an example, you could put her name in a Google search and then put NYTimes and simply write email. Do some digging, click on some links, and chances are you will find her email address, right? So once again, that's just one way, but she's also active on Twitter. Many times you'll find that these journalists are not gonna respond to your emails. They're probably not gonna respond to your Facebook messages either, because they get a lot of pitches and they get a lot of requests. That's why, once again, this is a marathon and not a sprint. Is it possible? Absolutely. And I want to invite you all to join us on a consistent journey every month to pitch at least five journalists using these strategies. Who here is ready to commit to that? And I want to take a screenshot because I want to remember. I see Drosella, Celestine, Sandra, okay. Teresa, she's up for the challenge. Valerie's like, I'm not sure yet. Okay, good. Renee, she's up for the challenge. I already know Charmaine's up for the challenge. Good, excellent. Sandra, love it. Glad to know that you are, because it works. Next month, in fact, we're students at the work, so we're gonna be applying these same strategies as well. And because it's Black History Month, we're gonna figure out how we can make our services relevant to being a part of the conversation about African American history. Isn't that crazy? Like how you have to now rethink about your business in a way that people are interested in. It's fun, right? It's a challenge, but it's fun. So good stuff. As we are nearing the top of the hour, I just want to open the floor for 2 questions and 3 people to share what their biggest takeaways from today has been. So 2 questions, if you have any, no pressure. Good to see you, Renee.
Hi, this is Teresa. I did have a question. And hi, and going back to having your digital, and I like that, by the way, digital assets. Does it matter if you have a huge following or not that would bring interest to the journalist?
It doesn't matter. Nope. Because they're not looking for you to be an influencer. They already work for the New York Times and the Washington Post. They're just looking to highlight unique story angles, and your unique story angle.
Thank you. Thank you.
Celestine, yes. Unmute yourself.
Okay, my question is about the digital asset. That's the posting and blogging. Is that what you mean when you say digital assets?
Those are some of your digital assets. Digital assets are, they can range in what they are, but anything like a website.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay.
Just represents your brand and
Yeah.
it's your expertise that people, when they go, they'll know that, 1 minute you're not talking about, I don't know, pet walking, and then the next minute you're talking about marketing, that it shows consistency, it shows brand harmony, and they know that you're a reliable source for their article.
Okay. I have some digital assets. They're consistent, but before I discovered I had a niche to work with women only as of a couple of days ago, I finally decided to settle in with that. I'm trying to understand if I should go back and look at all of my assets to see how I can pitch to a journalist I'm nervous, y'all. Excuse me.
Come on.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but I am. So that I can pitch my service or what I
Yeah, so you don't actually have to go back in in history. What I would say to you and for each of you is to just bring your stuff up to date, bring it current, right?
Okay.
The last blog or the last YouTube video or Facebook video, etc., to have been 2-5 months ago or last year. Bring it relevant. Look at the holidays before they come, and 3 months in advance, 60 days in advance, if you can, start building up that asset database so that people can go there and know that you know what you're talking about. Because it's a huge risk, I'll tell you, for journalists to actually put you in their stories. Valerie, you know this, right? Being in corporate and you know how media is. That's why once you give them a good angle, once you be that expert for them, they'll always go back asking you for more.
Okay. I just want to be sure because I don't want to have that perfection mentality that I used to have. And because my mindset is totally different now, which I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you all. I can move forward with this since I committed to pitching 5.
Yes, we're on that 5 pitching game because this time next year, man, if you pitch 5, like you are bound to land at least 1, 5 a month. That's it.
Yes.
5. It's not hard. Very simple. 5 lines inside of an email on Twitter. Make sure you're in the character limit there. But yeah, just find them and reach out to them until you get results. And I can't wait till you get results.
Awesome. I'm excited, y'all.
Can I make a comment, Chantel?
Yes. Could you tell us what one of your major takeaways was? We're going to take 2 more after you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for this. So I am originally from Africa. I moved here in America 11 years ago. And when I was in the government back in my country, I was looking on those dates. And as a cabinet minister, my husband was just joking with me how I can even make a speech about the mountains and calling people how they have to love the mountains and what they bring to us. So that it's like a wake up call. And when I came here, because I was in environment, I didn't see people celebrating environment and talking about it, water, what we have. So it's a wake up call for me, and I love that. I will look into these months and see the holidays, what I can do. But as American, I think it's time for women especially to shine. And it's a time for African American to shine more than ever. So now we have an opportunity to participate in the change we want. And this is a platform I see that can help us to shine and influence and make changes in our communities.
Absolutely. I'm glad you see it as that. You are the voice. You know, don't think that celebrities should only dominate the media or influencers. No, it's up to each of us to just use what we already have. Commit 5 journalists a month, pitch them multiple times in a month, and let's get our voices heard. So 2 more people. Teresa, good to see you, and Angela, your biggest takeaways, 2 major takeaways.
So for me, I wrote my autobiography, I wrote my testimony. And so the biggest takeaway for me is trying to do a mind shift of taking my testimony and turning it into like what is my expertise out of my testimony. So that's what I have to do and find out, like, what are the top 5 things you would want to share? I don't know. I have to just reorganize my mind now from going to just testimony to more business like.
Yeah, but have you truly even exhausted that testimony conversation? Like, oh my, once you guys hear from Angela, you'll be like, oh my God. And one day we will have an opportunity to highlight each of you in some way, so that we can get to know each other a little bit better, right? I would like that because I know so much about many of you that I'm just like, you got to know Angela, you got to know Valerie, you got to know Teresa, like y'all are just the bomb. So anyway, I digress. So don't think about the shift necessarily as much as you should be thinking about the angle, right? All of it matters. All of it is relevant. However, what you're probably thinking right now is that you should repackage your testimony in a way that more people can see themselves in it, as opposed to it just being, this is what happened to me, and this is how I was able to make the beauty out of ashes, right? So yes, you're thinking the right way. But Angela, your story is so amazing. I can see you on CBN. I can see you. This strategy even works when you're pitching people who are influencers, who have a large YouTube following. Okay, they're looking for different ways to highlight or talk about their area of expertise. When I was doing my show, Girl Share Your Story, I got a lot of people who use a similar strategy for me to want to bring them on. So put yourself in the position of a reporter, of a journalist, of a host, of a YouTube influencer. We're always looking for content. So make our jobs easy by raising your hand and say, hey, I'm here. I appreciate what you do. Be very specific about the praise, okay? Because how many of you love when somebody is very specific about what they learned from you, what the wins were, right? So carry off that same type of relationship building with these journalists, and that'll make them take a pause instead of you just saying, hey, I wrote a book, this is what I do. Let me know if you're interested. No, maybe the first 4 or 5 pitches won't even be about you. It'll be like you commenting underneath their articles, you sending them a tweet, retweeting them, and being very specific. Wow, that was super dope what you wrote about X, Y, and Z. Just celebrate them for a couple of months, right? And then introduce yourself. Wine and dine them. So Yes, Angela, to talk about your point, Sharonda said, yes, it's so encouraging. I'm glad you're getting it. Yeah, to your point, you don't necessarily have to pivot and change. Your testimony still matters, but just think about how you can include more people into your story.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so we have time for one more. And I think, Teresa, your hand was up. Was that right? Yes, Teresa. Just unmute yourself.
Now, Teresa cut, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said me.
Tears, tell me how to say it.
Okay.
Right?
Are you talking to me or to?
Yes, it's Tirza, right?
Tirza, yeah. Were you talking to me or to the, because there's a Teresa on. I didn't know.
Yes, Tirza.
Okay, thank you. My grandson just came in, so, but I wanted to say that I appreciate what you're doing and I appreciate being on the day and what I've heard. It helped me to understand that even when you're looking at a niche, that you actually can expand into other areas, because me being a caregiver and having co-wrote law that changed in Washington State, which then caused nationally to change the foster care system. I'm looking at the lady talking about caregivers because we're caregivers. And also, we want to make sure that people leave. My thing is helping youth age out of foster care. So that also gets into the financial part of it. So just listening to what other people are saying, it makes you understand that you do have a little bit more expertise than you actually thought of in your small, when you think your niche is so small, you're realizing that you do have a lot to offer on a lot of different subjects, but they all intertwine.
Yes, yes. It's all related. It's just being very creative, as you say, Teresa, on how you're going to exhaust. And funny thing about it, you can never, it's like in infinity. There's always a different way to tell the same story. Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm gonna look at the chat now. And I see, Sandra, you said that great session, thank you. Will there be a replay? Yes, there will be a replay. Thankfully, I recorded it. And please remind me. So here's how you can help me help you. I want to DJ next time, so I want you to come on right at the top of the hour. I want you to play music, so whoever wants to be the DJ, let me know. And then the next thing, please remind me to record it because it doesn't happen automatically. So yes, there will be a replay. Thank you for coming, even though you're teaching. And yes, Renee, same question. Great. All right, you all enjoy your lunch hour. We'll see you on Friday for our next training session. Love ya. Bye-bye.
Love you all. Have a good day.
You guys.
Bye-bye.
Love you guys. Good luck. I love you.